I'm not telling you to get married or to stay single. None of that. I just want to throw the numbers at you and tell you a little bit. I want to show you the good, the bad, the ugly of what it is for a single person versus being married when it comes to retirement savings and living in retirement. Because this is a big one. So this is the handy-dandy board I wanted to take you over to, by the way. If we haven't met, I'm Eric with Jazz Wealth Managers, where we don't just invest you dough, we like to educate you. And so let's talk about this thing. We've got the Roth. And so when it comes to a Roth, yeah, you've got the basics. Okay, well, I can do $6,500 if I'm single, $7,500 if I'm over 55 or 50 years of age or older during the 2023 year. Or you can do double that as long as you have the income to cover it if you're married. So there's a lot more opportunity to be able to save to cool things like the Roth. The Roth income limit is another pretty sweet one here. And now I'm going to go over some really good things, but then I'm going to go over some bad things too of being married. Sorry to my wife there. But no, I want to really break this down for you. And so the Roth income. So the Roth income limit, if you make under $129,000 and you are single, you can do a Roth IRA. But if you make $129,000 or over, there's a little phase out period, and then basically you can't do the Roth IRA. Now, if you're married though, you have all the way up to $204,000 before that phase out starts. So it's a pretty sweet deal there where you've got a lot more income you can make because they're saying, well, hey, you probably have two incomes coming into play. Another one that you've got to think through, Social Security. Well, obviously, you're only going to have one. You're going to have two over here. That's going to be super helpful. Not only that, but if you were to be retired, and let's just say that you were, maybe ill or your husband was ill and you were still living and you were the spouse. Well, guess what? If they had the higher Social Security, you could get that. Well, over here, you're kind of stuck. Whatever you get is what you get. And so think through that. I see this so many times, especially with people that have had that long-term partner and they have little things that they're trying to figure out within their financial planning. And it's like, sometimes, I'm not saying, again, get married, but sometimes I'm like, this could help you if you set it up so that, hey, if so-and-so doesn't make it, maybe you get their Social Security. So there's things to think through there. Really a big one is when it comes to taxes. Now, when it comes to taxes, the government they basically just say, hey, if you're married, we're going to help you out a lot more on the tax brackets. Just to give you an idea, I'm going to put a little screen up here to show you as well. But right here in the 22% tax bracket, now what's above the 22% is the 12%, and what's below that, or actually higher, is the 24%. But for a single filer, if you make between $44,725 to, using a screen here, $95,375, anything in that range is taxed at 22%, and then it's going to go even higher than that, up to the 24% bracket. Well, the 22% bracket is much bigger for somebody that's married filing jointly. You have $89,450 all the way through $190,750. I hope I'm getting that right exactly, but I'm very close on that. I'm trying to work with my old eyes here. And so we've got those different numbers, and that's a big one. Now, also when it comes to taxes is the standard deduction. So you've got one standard deduction over here on the single side, and over here on the married side, you've got two. So just to give you simple numbers, I know the standard deductions went up a little bit, but if you've got, let's say, $12,500, here is your standard deduction. To give you an idea on how this is going to work, if you make $100,000, you're going to subtract out $12,500, and that's what you're going to end up having as your opportunity to be able to show as income that's taxable. Well, on the other side of that, well, $12,500 times 2, so then you're going to have, let's say, $100,000 in income, but now you're going to subtract out $25,000, whatever's remaining there, that's your taxable income. So the double standard deduction is a huge play in favor of being married filing jointly there. Now, I said a lot of good there. There's a couple other things that come in play when it just comes to the fact that if you can have two incomes coming into a house, you have to think through the fact that you could potentially save more. I'd already mentioned in the Roth, but if you're saving more towards your 401ks, maybe you have a little higher income as a household, You also will have the opportunity to get an employer match, possibly from both employers. That could be big for you. But all of that said, there's bad things too. There's really bad things. It's awful. Don't get married. And so let's think through that. So something that I always see as a real concern for people, especially the retirees, is healthcare. So it's double the healthcare. And when it comes to healthcare costs, they continuously are going up, and there's a big unknown there. The government stepped in. You've got the Affordable Care Act. You have a lot of things there right this second. But just in general, to give you an idea, you do have double the healthcare. Once you hit 65, you have Medicare, but you're still going to have the expenses there. Long-term care. When it comes to long-term care is one that either maybe you have your own insurance or you're planning to self-fund. I call it the plan tanker because it will literally tank a financial plan sometimes. And if you're just single and you have your personal long-term care, it's not as much to worry about. But if there are two people and you're trying to plan for this, there's a large expense that comes into play, and you could potentially even get to a point where maybe only one person needs it, the other person doesn't. But what if they need it and they drain down all of your assets and it leaves the other person hanging? So there's always that thing to think about if you're married, filing jointly, or if you just have a significant other, making sure they're taken care of. Something else that a lot of people don't think through is a pension. Now, not everybody has a pension, but when it comes to the pension, if you're single, you just take the amount, either the lump sum, or you just take the 100% payout to you. But if you're married, well, you're probably going to take a lesser amount because you also want to take care of your spouse. And then you have other just general things that come into play. You're going to have 2 cars versus 1 car if you're married. Well, that's 2 cars, that's upkeep there. You're going to have 2 mouths to feed, all of those different things. So you've got to think through the general expenses that add up, but hopefully you've saved more if you're in that situation. But for this, I really just wanted to give you some ideas, some thought to think through, to think outside the box a little bit like we do here at Jazz Wealth. If you hadn't checked us out, be sure to do so. You can do that at jazzwealth.com. We'd be happy to help you.